Okay, this is part two. I guess I blathered on so long, my Android had heard enough and just shut me down. So I just wanted to finish up real quick. This one won't be near as long, but why would you live in your van? Well, there's a bunch of different reasons. Um, my kids are all grown up. I don't have a girlfriend or a wife, obviously. So I decided I wanted to travel and then get kind of podunk little jobs here and there, make enough money for gas to live, and see different places. I started in Mississippi, went to Colorado, went to um, the Grand Tetons, stayed there for 3 months, went back to Colorado, stayed there for most of the season, living out of my van. And then I went to Tillamook, Oregon. I was actually going to Portland. I mentioned that in the last video. Portland was just too crowded. So I also mentioned you all have to have water. Always have water in the van with you. Now I'm showing you like this tiny little bottle, and I when I'm on the road, I keep a gallon at least. And I mentioned I don't run, you know, extra batteries, so you have to have light at night. And because I don't want to run my main car battery down, van battery, that I wouldn't run the stereo, I wouldn't, run the lights. So I have these things. This is, I mentioned fluorescent. I mentioned the regular flashlight. What I didn't mention was this guy, and it's really cool because you put it on your head and it tilts so you can read a book. And that's what I ended up doing, because instead of sitting here twiddling my thumbs in the evening when there's nothing else to do, I started reading books, and it turned out really cool. I read some stuff that I really enjoyed. So you can, of course, you're always busy keeping up with it, because when you're living in it, it gets messed up, and it's such a small area. You lose things. You're like, how could I lose something in such a small area? Matter of fact, there was a hat I wore for the longest time, and then all of a sudden it just disappeared. And I'm like, gee, it must have fell out or something. Like 2 weeks later, I find it on the ground next to the seat. I'm like, how'd that happen? I don't know. It might have been caught up underneath the seat, because I was sure I looked under everywhere. I don't know how things disappear and then reappear. It's like there's this funny vortex or wormhole or something, and stuff disappears and then suddenly it reappears. Anyhow, so you don't want to, let it turn into a huge mess. You got to keep up cleaning it. That's why I keep certain things, sweeper, keep the carpet clean. I put this, carpet for your feet down here, because this area really becomes heavily tracked. Like if you're staying at a Walmart, you don't want to be getting in and out of the van all the time. So I made it, I used to have a box here, like a console box, and you opened it up and it had a little cooler inside, and I thought that was real clever, but it just was in the way, and I ended up moving it. And like this seat right here, none of these seats swivel. This passenger seat here, I can unbolt it and completely turn it around and turn this part of the van into like my little living room space. And I'd sit there and read a book, or, you know, I had a radio, so I could listen to the radio. Stuff gets worn out real quick. Because, like, I mean, I was up in Colorado. It gets cold there. And basically, 1 or 2 maybe even 5 degrees below zero, and I'm talking Fahrenheit, you can take it. But I'll tell you what, it gets down to 10, 15 degrees below, and you've got a whole new set of problems. And I mean, I could stay warm. Behind that utility bag, there's a 30 below cold weather sleeping bag. Now, that brown cover you see there, that turns into a sleeping bag, but it's only good for 10 degrees above zero. So I would actually get into one and then the other one. Here's the thing, it was almost impossible to get out because everything was frozen. And then you'd have to put your frozen clothes on. It got to where you would have to actually sleep in your clothes so that you could get up and get out and, use the bathroom or whatever and not get frostbite. So, like if I go up to upstate Maine, I do have cold weather gear. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that's not in this van right now because I'm in kind of dry dock, cleaning it up, getting stuff ready for my next trip. So that's how I wanted to kind of clear this up on part 2. Maybe I can get this done before the Android decides it's heard enough. Okay, so a shout out to all the other van dwellers. Not many of us are left from when I started, but then more people come on. So it's real interesting to see what other people say and do and how they get along. And, they're kind of like-minded. They don't have that I have to have an apartment or I have to have, a house and the guy with the most stuff when he dies wins kind of thing. I'm like trying to be minimalistic, and boy, I'll tell you what, if you spend much time in a van, you can get pretty minimalistic. There's stuff you find out you don't need and you don't keep it. I mean, I drug stuff around with me for the longest time before I realized I don't need this and just gave it away. Stuff I spent good money on. Okay, so that is the end of part 2. And I'll come back probably in a couple 3 days, and because I've done this before, I've got some good material, stuff I can share with you, and hopefully this helps you out if you're thinking about it. And to be very honest, if you're thinking about it and you say to yourself, now wait a minute, I don't know, then I hope it helps you make the right decision, like not doing it, because it's just not for everybody. And matter of fact, my oldest brother has a beautiful house up in Colorado. That's why I went there. I could go use his shower when I wanted to. I actually only stayed there through the winter, like 1 night or 2 nights. And that's because it was like a holiday and they were like, oh, come on over, we're having Thanksgiving, And then when I was there, they're like, no, don't go back out in the van, stay in the guest room. So I might have done that in a whole year, maybe twice. But they were so kind. I remember my brother one night staring out his half-frozen window thinking, dude, my brother's up there somewhere in the mountain. I hope he's not frozen to death. Anyhow, it's not for everybody, but I really loved it. So, like I said, I hope this helps you out. I hope everybody's well. This is James. See ya!